Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour. In the first leg of his five-nation visit, Prime Minister Modi visits the UAE, meets President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. India and the UAE signed key MOUs on LPG supply, defense. Prime Minister Modi condemns attacks on the UAE facilities during West Asia crisis. Two-day BRICS foreign ministers meeting wraps today. Leaders exchange views on global and regional issues. US President Trump wraps up his two-day China trip. Leaders call it a new constructive and strategic phase in US-China ties. First up, our continuing coverage here on DD India of Prime Minister Modi's ongoing visit to the UAE. Prime Minister Modi reached the UAE on Friday, where he met UAE's President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The Prime Minister was also accorded a Guard of Honor upon his arrival. Prime Minister Modi's brief visit to the UAE has brought big returns for India. The two countries signed a landmark framework for strategic defense partnership, along with an MOU on strategic petroleum reserves and an agreement for long-term supplies of LNG. Another key MOU was inked for establishing a ship repair cluster at Vadinar in India. In a major boost to the economy, investments worth $5 billion were announced in Indian infrastructure, RBL Bank and Samman Capital. These outcomes are expected to strengthen the bilateral ties in defense, energy security and economic cooperation. Earlier, Emirati F-16 jets escorted the Prime Minister's aircraft as it entered the UAE airspace. The gesture underscored the strong relations between the two countries. And Prime Minister Modi also held talks with the UAE's President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, during which the two leaders discussed key issues of mutual importance.
Your Highness, my dear brother, इस आत्मीय स्वागत के लिए मैं आपका हृदय से बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। और जैसा आपने कहा, मैं अपने दूसरे घर आया हूं। ये शब्द, ये भाव मेरे जीवन की बहुत बड़ी पूंजी है। आज भी जिस प्रकार से आपकी वायुसेना के जहाजों ने एस्कॉर्ट किया। ये भारत के लोगों का सम्मान है। आपने पिछले दिनों प्राकृतिक आपदा के कारण कुछ इलाकों में जो परेशानियां आई, उन पीड़ित परिवारों के लिए संवेदना व्यक्त की। इसके लिए भी मैं आपका बहुत बहुत आभारी हूं। ब्रदर, पिछले कुछ समय से आपसे फोन पर तो बात होती रहती थी, परंतु मैं स्वयं आपसे मिलने के लिए बहुत ही बेताब था, आतुर था। पता नहीं क्यों, लेकिन मुझे ऐसा लग रहा था कि मुझे जितना हो सके उतना जल्दी आपके पास आना चाहिए, आपको मिलना चाहिए। आज आपसे मिलकर के मुझे सचमुच बहुत खुशी हुई है। ब्रदर, जैसा मैंने आपको पहले भी कहा है, यूएई पर हुए हमलों की हम कठोर निंदा करते हैं। यूएई को जिस तरह निशाना बनाया गया है, ये किसी भी रूप में स्वीकार्य नहीं है। ब्रदर, इन कठिन परिस्थितियों में आपने जिस संयम, करेज और विजडम का परिचय दिखाया है, यह बहुत ही सराहनीय है। राष्ट्रीय एकता, सुरक्षा और क्षेत्रीय अखंडता को बनाए रखने में आपके नेतृत्व में उठाए गए कदमों का हम अभिनंदन करते हैं। कठिन समय यूएई में रहने वाले भारतीय समुदाय की चिंता करने और उनकी देखभाल की जाए। जिस प्रकार से आपने उसको अपने परिवार के सदस्यों पर संभाला है, मैं यूएई सरकार का, आपका, रॉयल फैमिली का हृदय से बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। ब्रदर, पश्चिम एशिया क्षेत्र में युद्ध की परिस्थिति का प्रभाव आज पूरे विश्व पर दिखाई दे रहा है। भारत ने हमेशा समस्याओं के समाधान के लिए डायलॉग और डिप्लोमेसी को प्राथमिकता दी है। होर्मुज़ को फ्री, ओपन और सेफ बनाए रखना, ये हमारी सबसे बड़ी प्राथमिकता है। इस विषय में अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कानूनों का पालन आवश्यक है। ब्रदर, भारत हर परिस्थिति में यूएई के साथ कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर खड़ा है और आगे भी खड़ा रहेगा। जल्द से जल्द शांति और स्थिरता की बहाली के लिए भारत हर संभव सहयोग देने के लिए तैयार है। ब्रदर, हमारी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप को निरंतर नई ऊंचाइयों तक पहुंचाने के लिए मैं आपका हृदय से बहुत बहुत अभिनंदन करता हूं। जनवरी में आपकी भारत यात्रा के दौरान हमने आपसी सहयोग को क्वालिटेटिवली अपग्रेड करने पर सहमति जताई। इतने कम समय में भी हमने सभी विषयों में उल्लेखनीय प्रगति की। दोनों टीमों के बीच भी करीबी संपर्क रहा। आज जिस तरह की परिस्थिति है, इसमें भारत और यूएई की स्ट्रेटेजिक साझेदारी, इसका महत्व कई गुना बढ़ गया। हम आने वाले समय में हर क्षेत्र में साथ मिलकर के आगे बढ़ते रहेंगे। एक बार फिर आपके आत्मीयता भरे स्वागत और गहरी मित्रता के लिए मैं हृदय से आपका बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं।
And posting on X, the Prime Minister said, and I quote him here, "I extend my thanks to my brother, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates, for his gracious gesture in receiving me at Abu Dhabi Airport. And I look forward to our discussions aimed at strengthening the ties between India and the UAE across key sectors such as energy, investment, supply chains, and more, unquote. And for more on this visit, we are now joined by two eminent guests, Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya and Mr. Atul Aneja. Gentlemen, welcome to this broadcast. Ambassador, to you first, what did you make of the visit, the way it's panned out so far?
I think the visit is very significant and it has lived up to its expectations. We see the United Arab Emirates as a very unique and special strategic partner, where we have moved from technical cooperation, operational details, into a future-oriented partnership. And I think Prime Minister's stopover in UAE on his way to Europe is a very clear indication of the very high priority we place to our relations with them. It also comes at a time when the region is going through a reasonably tumultuous time because of the Iran war and the consequences of that in the region and beyond. And so Prime Minister's visit also is a very strong signal of solidarity with the United Arab Emirates and our future partnership.
Indeed. Mr. Aneja, coming to you now, did the visit, the way the talks have shaped up so far, tick all the right boxes for you in terms of optics and outcomes as well?
Both ways, Ramesh. If you look at the optics, the very fact that the President of the United States went to the airport to receive the Prime Minister, very special gesture. And in terms of substance, if you look at it, look at the agreements which were signed, Ramesh. One on, I think, two to three on the energy security side of it, availability of LNG, LPG, and of course on energy reserves. As you are aware, ADNOC, which is the Abu Dhabi National Oil Corporation, has already located some of its strategic reserves in Indian vaults. I think that process is accelerating, shows the amount of trust between the two countries. Then there is also, and I wish I had more details about it, as of now I don't, which is about the defense relationship and the agreement which has been signed. And third, Ramesh, I think the remarks of the Prime Minister, he's actually offered all-out support to the UAE. So if you combine it all together, very, very substantial and substantive visit so far, Ramesh.
Indeed. Ambassador Bhattacharya, just to update our viewers on the MOUs and agreements signed, as Mr. Aneja was mentioning there were more or less 5 agreements signed, 1 on defense, 2 on energy security, 1 on ship repair, and 1 on investments. Let's tackle these issues one by one. Let's start with energy security, Ambassador. What did you make of the 2 specific MOUs, 1 on strategic petroleum reserves and 2 on supplies of LNG?
Our relationship with the UAE on this particular sector has grown over time from a buyer-seller partnership to one which is more durable, going up and down the value chain, in addition to looking at the strategic possibilities. So what we see in this particular exercise is that the LNG agreement, as you know, is a very important component towards our household domestic sector and the provision of the gas cylinders that is there, and that is often an input into this. So in other words, what we are seeing is that the UAE is getting directly connected with our overall governance aspects and looking after our citizens' welfare. And this long-term arrangement will be very useful. We saw when the Hormuz issue had come out, the resilience of energy supplies had become a question, and therefore one of the ways that you look at, apart from diversifying your supply bases and so on, is to see whether you can have a larger stockpile or strategic reserves within your own country or in places which are beyond the access of the straits. So we have, as you know, already have some reserves in Oman, which we had set up some time ago, and we've been developing the domestic reserves. And with this, I understand what was being discussed was of a volume of about 5 million barrels, which is a fairly significant amount of reserves. And the way that we replenish it and keep it healthy would be a big asset in terms of our energy security. And so in particular geopolitical crises where your economics can take a hit, the longer you can bear it out is better. And the more you can reach out to the more vulnerable people. And in both these cases, I think our agreements with the UAE tick both those boxes, the strategic aspects of it as well as the governance aspects of it. So very, very significant.
Indeed, Mr. Aneja, I want you to weigh now on the agreement on framework for the strategic defense partnership between India and the UAE. Your thoughts on what this might entail in the days ahead?
You see, this is happening in a bigger geopolitical context. And if you really look at the region, there have been parallel sort of agreements signed. One is between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, for example. And therefore, India also needs I won't say foothold, but a partner in the region because of obvious reasons, energy being one of the major ones, as well as the welfare of the Indian nationals who are there employed. So there is a strategic underpinnings on why we also need a major security relationship with this geography. And within the GCC, I think this is where we are coming together. One is, of course, the Duqm port, which is in Oman, where the Navy has a certain agreement with the Omanis. But I think this UAE is going to be very, very significant. And especially, Ramesh, I just spoke to you about the Pakistan-Saudi aspect. There is also the attacks which are taking place by Iran on UAE, which the Prime Minister completely rejected in his remarks. There is a positioning which is taking place. I do not see it ever, right now requiring any activation. But I think India is positioning itself well with Oman and with the UAE on the security dimensions, especially because if you see the shipping which is going to take place, Ramesh, because of the crisis in the Hormuz, there is a plan B which is already there, which is that we have to take out oil from the Indian Ocean ports. And already from the UAE, Ramesh, there is this Habshan pipeline, which comes out from the Abu Dhabi gas fields and oil fields, and then offloads in Fujairah, which is on the Indian Ocean coast, in the Gulf of Oman. So I think that is very, very crucial. And third, I think defense again and energy are going here together. Abu Dhabi has a surplus capacity to produce oil. The very reason why it has stepped out of OPEC is because it didn't want to be bound by these quotas. I believe it can now supply about 4 million barrels of oil a day. And that is substantial. And most of it is coming through this Habshan-Fujairah pipeline. So I think it is an integration of the two. You cannot separate the defense agreement, of which, frankly, I do not know the details. So I would hesitate to speak beyond this point. But I think it is tied up with the overall relationship, and especially the relationship related to energy and the presence of large number of Indian nationals in the UAE in the context of the larger Gulf security and the crisis with Iran.
Indeed. Ambassador Bhattacharya, before we talk about trade and investment, I want to go back to what Mr. Aneja was mentioning there. He says India has positioned itself well given the geopolitical flux we are seeing in the region and beyond. In that context, Ambassador, it strikes me as interesting that the visit takes place at a time when the Iranian minister is in town for the BRICS summit. Does that, to your mind, show diplomatic dexterity on the part of New Delhi to balance these seemingly contrarian relationships at once?
Well, India has had positive relations with all the countries in the region. So for us, I don't think this necessarily has to be an issue of signaling. Also, our support and endorsement of the UAE position is well known and has been articulated on several occasions. So I do not see this as signaling, because I think we also are desirous of having peace and stability back in that region, and our relations with Iran must also continue to grow. But I wanted to, while I do agree with what Dr. Neja was saying about the defense deal, I think if I may just add a word
Sure.
on that, because I think that's very significant. We've had a very active defense relationship with the UAE, but it was largely confined to joint exercises, some maritime operations, and some of the coordination that happens out of the operations that we all do collectively out of Bahrain. And so this one actually takes it further, and this is what is so fascinating about our relations with the UAE, that we take these tactical adjustments to a strategic level, and I think that's where we are going in the defense area as well. So from what I understand, the discussions on the strategic defense partnership, it probably has got a different formulation, is really on 5 planks. The first is really to expand the scope of the joint exercises that we have, to take it into the special forces, to look at counterterrorism movements, and to have the collaboration on that particular front, which is an extension of what we're doing. But there are several new issues that have come up as far as I can understand. One of them is about our collaboration in the field of co-production and joint production of various systems and subsystems. And this is something that is buttressed by the third element, which is about technology collaborations, co-development of certain aspects. And the fourth aspect of that is really about the cybersecurity part of it. And I think that is becoming increasingly important also with certain other partners that we have in that particular geography, where we already work very actively on cybersecurity issues, as we do understand, the geographical space is now being overtaken by cyberspace, and we need to have collective efforts. And the fifth one, which has a direct bearing on some of the developments in the region, is about maritime security. Now, we do have the white goods shipping kind of agreement and some of the intelligence sharing on that, but I think this is going to take this further towards more operational ability through the Bahrain operations, in which many of us are collectively involved, and to look at something that we can do collaboratively. Remember that we are also active partners in the Indian Ocean Rim Association, IORA, where the UAE is a very, very active player. And so we will see a lot of developments in this particular context. And we should not try to look at this from the broader aspect of the geopolitical realignments that are taking place, the kind of positionings that the Americans might have in the region, and also possibly the Chinese kind of intentions in the defense and security field for that Gulf region.
Indeed, Mr. Aneja, when we look at the ongoing visit, 2 things clearly stand out. One, in the larger regional context, this is the first high-level visit to Abu Dhabi since the conflict broke out, number one. And number 2, what is evident is the chemistry, the bonhomie, the rapport that exists between the 2 leaders in question, Prime Minister Modi and President Sheikh Mohammed Al Nahyan. Your thoughts on how this might keep India in good stead going forward, the investment in the relationship per se at the top level, and as well as the government to government level as well?
I think it's going on very well. The top level, especially when you look at the political systems in the Gulf, I think that matters very, very substantially. So the personal chemistry between Prime Minister and President Mohammed bin Zayed, extremely important. And I think that has taken the relationship to the present strategic level we see. I think that's a very, very important factor. Ramesh, I also want to point out to one other aspect.
Sure.
After the Strait of Hormuz crisis, there is an effort to find alternative routes which bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Mm-hmm. And here it is interesting that, there is this Omani port of Sohar, which is, has a land corridor with UAE. And then there is Khor Fakkan, which is a port for containers in the UAE. You find a lot of activity has started on these. That is, ships take goods to Sohar, and from there they are trucked into UAE, and from UAE they go across the Saudi border, and from Saudi border they are radiating into Kuwait to the north, towards Bahrain through the King Fahd Causeway, and to Qatar through the Samra crossing. So I think this is another area, and if you look at any of the supermarkets in the region, it is stuffed with Indian goods. You know, you have these Lulu centers and others all across, whether it's Bahrain, whether it's UAE, and the other Gulf countries. So I think UAE becomes a very, very important element in this effort to have a plan B of an alternative corridors for trade and transport, which bypass the Strait of Hormuz, which we know what the situation right now, and the end game probably has not begun, may or may not. So I think that element also adds a new dimension to the India-UAE relationship because of the crisis which happened around the Strait of Hormuz and the attack by Israel and the Americans on February 28th on Iran.
Indeed, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. I will have to leave it at that. May I thank both our guests, Ambassador Bhattacharya and Mr. Aneja, for joining us and sharing your thoughts and perspectives with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. Amid counterattacks, Russia and Ukraine exchanged 205 prisoners of war each on Friday. And after the break, we'll get you Iran Foreign Minister's exclusive conversation with DD India, where he compliments India's leadership of BRICS.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. After the UAE, Prime Minister Modi will be reaching the Netherlands on Friday on the second leg of his five-nation tour. He'll meet King Willem-Alexander and Prime Minister Rob Jetten to strengthen bilateral relationship and formalize a strategic partnership as well. Discussions are expected to focus on trade, security, emerging technologies, semiconductor, green hydrogen, water management and global issues, including Ukraine and West Asia. More in the next report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi shall be arriving here in The Hague, in the Netherlands, on the second leg of his five-nation tour. He will call on the Dutch King and the Queen. He will also hold bilateral meetings with the Dutch Prime Minister Rob Jetten, where cooperation in diverse fields ranging from security, defense, green hydrogen, semiconductors shall be discussed. But the most important would be the signing of strategic partnership. With my colleague Sudhakar Das and cameraman Sumit Naudyal, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in The Hague.
And DD India's Amritpal Singh interacted with Indians living in The Hague to gauge how they are using culture to reconnect with their roots.
Very good. Second speed.
This small group of Indians, some recent migrants, others whose forefathers migrated centuries ago, are using classical Indian dance to rediscover the Indianness in them.
They want to connect with their culture and the art, and this is a good way.
Indian classical music is it's like everything. It's like a deep ocean. When you dive in it, it's not stopping. You can.
So can you sing something for us?
Of course. Vana vana dhoondan jaun main, kitahun chip gaye Krishna Murari, kitahun chip gaye Krishna Murari.
And it's not just the diaspora interacting amongst themselves, they are reaching out to the Dutch people, truly acting as a living bridge between the two peoples and countries.
I like India a lot. I really like the Hindi script.
The Indian people also have their interests, which can help you in your life to be a better person, I think.
So clearly, the people-to-people connect is an important component of India-Netherlands ties. And the visit of Prime Minister Modi, the kind of interaction that he has with the Indian community, and there is a lot of interest in the Dutch people also. So this cultural aspect of India, the soft power of India, is clearly visible on the streets of The Hague. With cameraman Monty Singh and my colleague Sudhakar Das, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in the Netherlands.
As New Delhi is hosting the BRICS foreign ministers meeting, delegates are exchanging views on global and regional issues of mutual interest. On the second day of the meeting on Friday, BRICS member and partner countries are participating in the session on the reforms of global governance and multilateral system. The meeting is themed BRICS at 20, Building for Resilience, Innovation, Cooperation and Sustainability. And External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met his Iranian counterpart Syed Abbas Araghchi on Friday. The two ministers held a bilateral meeting on the margins of the BRICS foreign ministers meeting in New Delhi, where they discussed the situation in West Asia and its implications. They also exchanged views on bilateral issues of mutual interest, marking a significant moment in the evolving ties between the two countries. In an exclusive conversation with DD India, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi complimented India's leadership at BRICS. Speaking on the West Asia conflict, the minister said Iran is a victim of aggression and that the Strait of Hormuz is open for friendly countries. Take a look at this.
We are at the BRICS Foreign Ministers meet in New Delhi. I have with me the Foreign Minister of Iran, Mr. Abbas Araghchi. Welcome to DD India, sir. First, your key takeaways of the BRICS congregation meeting so far.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, I have to appreciate the Indian government for very warm hospitality extended to me and my delegation and to all delegations. And also for the very good and excellent arrangements for this ministerial meeting of BRICS and for the success of this meeting. I think it was one of the best, ministerial foreign ministers meeting of BRICS. We had several meetings and we discussed about different important topics which are related to BRICS purposes and principles. And I had the opportunity to express the position of my country, Islamic Republic of Iran, especially after this war of aggression which was imposed on us by the United States and Israel. And we very much appreciate the BRICS position in condemnation of that aggression, which is against the basic principles of international law and the United Nations Charter.
So we saw how the conflict in West Asia dominated the discussions at the BRICS meeting. What is the road ahead, if you can give us a sense of that?
Well, the road ahead for BRICS is to continue working on its principles and the road that we have started to go together. And for the West Asia, I think the best way is to go for diplomacy. There is no military solution. And I think the United States should understand the point. They have tested us at least twice. And they have come to the point that there is no military solution. They cannot achieve any of their goals through diplomacy, through, military. But if they try diplomacy, that is something else. We have already started engaging, but there are lots of problems in the way. The most important problem is the contradictory messages we receive from Americans through their, comments and interviews and whatever.
And sir, just one final question. The disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz is creating a lot of pressure in global supply chains, energy supply chains, including for friendly countries like India. How do you respond to that?
But this is not our fault. We didn't start this war. We are only defending ourselves. And I think we have every right for self-defense. Strait of Hormuz, as far as we are concerned, is not closed, especially for friendly countries. It's only closed for our enemies. But friendly countries, vessels belongs to all other countries, are only asked to coordinate their passage with our military in order to avoid any obstacle in the way, or to ensure a safe passage. And this is what we are doing. In the past several days, many vessels have gone through that strait with the help of our naval forces, and that will continue. The only way is to end this war of aggression altogether, and then we will make sure that safe passage would be guaranteed for each and every vessel.
Minister, thank you for speaking with India. That was Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, giving his perspective on the outcome of the BRICS congregation of foreign ministers, and also his perspective on the developments in the West Asia conflict. With camera person Sanjeev, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in New Delhi.
All right, moving on. US President Donald Trump departed Beijing on Friday after concluding a two-day summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping, marking the first visit by US President to China since 2017. Analysts say President Trump was expected to urge Beijing to encourage Iran towards a deal with Washington, D.C., though experts believe that China is unlikely to pressure Tehran given its strategic ties with that country. During the visit, President Xi described the US-China ties as entering a new constructive and strategic phase, calling the visit a milestone that produced several cooperative understandings between the two sides. In a rare gesture, President Xi gave President Trump a private tour of the compound's inner grounds, including the famous Lian Bai cypress trees whose trunks have grown together. During the visit, President Trump remarked on the age of the trees and asked President Xi whether other foreign leaders were also received there. The two leaders met at the Waldorf Zhongnan High Complex in Beijing as President Trump wraps up his state visit to China. President Trump said that the relationship between the US and China is a very strong one. He also said that he discussed Iran with President Xi and that they do not want Iran to have nuclear weapons and they want the straits to reopen.
We did discuss Iran. We feel very similar to Iran. We want that to end. We don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. We want the straits open. We're closing it now. They closed it, and we closed it on top of them. But we want the straits open, and we want them to get it ended because it's a crazy thing. They're a little bit crazy, and it's no good. Can't have it. They cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Meanwhile, the warm handshakes and pomp a day earlier was overshadowed by a blunt warning from President Xi that missteps on the sensitive issue of Taiwan. President Xi said Taiwan is the most important issue in China-US relations and it could create a highly dangerous situation if mishandled. Meanwhile, Taiwan's military conducted a live fire exercise in Kinmen County on Wednesday, simulating a defense against enemy forces attempting to land on the outlying island. As per a military news outlet published by Taiwan's defense ministry, the The drill was held near Kinmen Airport and involved the use of Javelin missiles, howitzers, M60A3 tanks and CM21 armored personnel carriers. It integrated various units including an artillery battalion, tank battalion and amphibious reconnaissance platoons to verify combined arms coordination capabilities, aiming to strengthen immediate battlefield response through realistic training. The United States cast 8 hours long Israel-Lebanon talks in Washington, D.C. on Thursday as productive and positive. State Department officials said more discussions aimed at ending the conflict will continue on Friday. A senior Lebanese official said earlier that Lebanon will demand ceasefire during talks as Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah continue to trade blows despite a U.S.-backed truce declared last month. An Israeli government spokesperson said talks were going as scheduled and taking place with the goal of disarming Hezbollah and reaching a peace agreement. Ukraine's State Emergency Service said on Friday that a death toll from a Russian strike on Kyiv rose to 24 people as rescuers concluded a search operation lasting more than 28 hours. It further says that a further 47 people were injured in the capital and 30 people were pulled from the rubble. Local authorities said rescue operations in the affected district had ended, with emergency units transitioning to recovery and reconstruction work. Kyiv's mayor declared Friday a day of mourning for those killed in what Ukrainian officials described as one of the largest aerial attacks on the capital since the start of the war. Russia and Ukraine exchanged 205 prisoners of war each on Friday, Moscow's defense ministry said, a week after U.S. President Trump announced a large swap could take place between the two sides. President Trump said last week that Russia and Ukraine would carry out a mutual swap of 1,000 prisoners as he announced a 3-day U.S.-brokered ceasefire. The swaps remain one of the few remaining areas of cooperation between the two sides at war since Russia ordered troops into its neighbor in February 2022. Russia's defense ministry said the United Arab Emirates provided humanitarian assistance during the return of the Russian servicemen from captivity. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. Petrol and diesel prices hiked by ₹3 per litre. Government assures no fuel shortage amid global energy volatility.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you.
Exactly what to save your.
You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Oil companies have announced a hike of ₹3 per litre in petrol and diesel prices on Friday amid mounting pressure from rising global crude oil prices triggered by the ongoing West Asia conflict. Petrol in the national capital will now cost ₹97.77 per litre, while diesel prices have risen to ₹90.67. In a recent media briefing, officials said that India currently maintains around 60 days of fuel stocks and nearly 45 days of LNG inventories, despite continuing volatility in global energy markets. India has so far avoided increases in petrol and diesel prices, choosing instead to absorb the pressure through state-run oil marketing companies, tax adjustments and supply management measures. The price of CNG in Delhi has been raised by rupees 2 per kg from 77.09 rupees per kg to rupees 79.09 per kg. However, the fresh conflict in West Asia has once again pushed global energy prices sharply higher. The crude basket India imports, which averaged around $69 per barrel in February before the conflict escalated, has since climbed to nearly $114 per barrel. Electronics and Information Technology Minister Ashwini Vaishnav laid the foundation stone and dedicated projects worth over 400 crore rupees to the nation, including the Sahasra Semiconductor project on Friday. Addressing an event, the minister said India's electronics manufacturing sector has grown over the past 12 years, adding that mobile phones have now emerged as India's top export product. Take a listen.
इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में देश ने बहुत बड़ी छलांग लगाई है इन 12 वर्षों में, जहां मात्र 1-2 लाख करोड़ रुपए का मैन्युफैक्चरिंग होता था, आज भारत में 13 लाख करोड़ रुपए का इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग है। हम सब जानते हैं कि एक्सपोर्ट होने वाली कमोडिटीज़ में जनरली डीजल एक्सपोर्ट होता था, जेम्स एंड ज्वेलरी एक्सपोर्ट होता था, टेक्सटाइल, इंजीनियर्ड गुड्स होते थे। इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स का नाम कभी आता नहीं था कि भारत से क्या एक्सपोर्ट होता है भाई, उसमें इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स का नाम कभी सुना नहीं जाता था। आज मोबाइल फ़ोन भारत से एक्सपोर्ट होने वाली एक नंबर सबसे पहली कमोडिटी बन गई है जो भारत से एक्सपोर्ट होता है।
The NEET UG re-examination will be held on 21st June after the government cancelled the earlier exam over alleged irregularities, and will be conducted in the computer-based test or CBT format from next year. Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan said the fight is against examination mafias and anti-social elements using technology to spread misinformation and create confusion around the examinations process.
लड़ाई है परीक्षा माफियाओं के साथ जो एंटी सोशल एलिमेंट अभी मित्रों टेक्नोलॉजी के समय में एक नई चुनौती बढ़ रहा है। विभिन्न प्रकार की सोशल मीडिया हैंडल से भ्रमात्मक तथ्यों को रखा जाता है, गुमराह करने की फिर कोशिश किया जाता है, फिर नीट की हम लोग एग्जामिनेशन तोड़ सकते हैं, इस प्रकार की व्यवस्था को खुली चुनौती दिया जा रहा है। ये सारे को ध्यान में रखते सरकार ने तुरंत सीबीआई को काम सौंपी है। सीबीआई ने त्वरित कार्रवाई शुरू किया है। इस बार सीबीआई तह तक जाएगी।
Well, let's now give you some news about the forthcoming India-Africa Forum Summit. Ahead of the India-Africa Forum Summit, Comoros' Foreign Minister K.L. Ganju highlighted the strong and growing bilateral ties with India, saying that a high-level delegation from the country is expected to participate in the summit. Cameroon's representative Sylvie Michel, in turn, praised India's global leadership. She described relations between India and Cameroon as strong and friendly.
The bilateral relations between the two countries are very good. We have many MOUs signed between the two countries. And during the India-Africa Forum Summit 3rd, our president was there with a very large delegation. And this year also I hope that the delegation will comprise about 15 people. President is coming, the foreign minister is coming, and senior officers are coming.
You know, I want to thank the government of India for what it's doing for not only Africa, but for the whole world, because India is inspiring. Then India is a model, if you want, and we have to copy from India. Then the relationship between Cameroon and with my country and India are excellent.
And now to all the news from the world of sport. In the Asian Senior Weightlifting Championships, India's Ajit Narayana delivered a remarkable performance to secure a bronze medal each in both clean and jerk and overall in the men's 71 kg category at Gandhinagar, Gujarat on Thursday. Ajit showcased exceptional strength and composure to register a total lift of 314 kg, including 174 kg effort in clean and jerk, to earn India a place on the podium. At the Asian Championships, separate medals are awarded for each of the two weightlifting sections, snatch and clean and jerk, in addition to the ones for overall lift. Ajit is the third Indian to win a medal in the championships. Indian wushu player Aparna Dahiya clinched a gold medal in the women's 52 kg category at the 11th Sanda World Cup in Macau. Aparna beat reigning world champion Thi Puong Ngango of Vietnam in straight sets in the final. Now, this was India's first goal in the event, which began on 12th May. Aparna had earlier lost to the same opponent in the final of the World Wushu Championships held in September last year in Brazil. Competitive wushu is split into two main branches, Taolu and Sanda. Taolu is a combination of gymnastics and martial arts, while Sanda is a modern unarmed combat sport that developed from traditional wushu techniques. Carlo Ancelotti has extended his contract as Brazil manager until the 2030 World Cup. The Italian was appointed to the post in May last year after his departure from Real Madrid. Ancelotti secured Brazil's qualification for the 2026 World Cup, which will take place in Canada, Mexico and the United States next month. Ancelotti has had 10 games in charge of the South Americans, winning 5, drawing 2 and losing 3. Brazil will be aiming to win a 6th World Cup and the country's first victory at the Showpiece tournament since 2002. And that's all for this edition of DD India NewsHour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and around the world on the DD India mobile app on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code to download it. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India NewsHour.